Hi, everybody. I'm going to walk you through creating a mind map to illustrate Nolan's influences. So, the first thing that you'll do is write Nolan's name in the center of your paper, and then the risk behavior that we were focusing on, which was binge drinking. After that, beneath that or near that, you can include your 3 to 5 facts about binge drinking. Then, around the center, you're going to add sticky notes or circles or boxes with the 4 main influences that Nolan experienced and the messages that he received from each of those. So the first box should be the culture of binge drinking or the culture of fraternity life on college campuses, and 1 or 2 of the messages that he received from the culture and noting whether they're positive or negative. The second will be his perceptions of what was normal or expected behavior for somebody like him, and again, noting whether the messages are positive or negative. The third will be the influence of his peers. What were the messages he received, positive or negative? And then the fourth is his personal values of loyalty, social recognition, and freedom, and note whether they're positive or negative. Then what you can do is show how strongly you think each influence pushed him. And you can do that by drawing an arrow or a line connecting it to the center. So just for example, I'm not saying these are the correct answers, but you could use like the thickness of a line to illustrate how strongly you think each one influenced him. So you can just see there's some different examples there. So this is all representing step 1 of the skill, which is the what phase. The next part is to analyze, so what? What's the impact of receiving those messages? So somewhere along the outside, you're going to identify the impact of receiving each of these messages. So you'll start with analyzing what's the impact of receiving those cultural messages you had identified. And you'll explain how each cultural message impacts Nolan's thoughts, feelings, or behaviors. You'll do the same thing for the impact on his thoughts, feelings, and behaviors from his own perception of what was normal. You'll also do that for the impact of peers and for the impact of his personal values. The last part, which is required for proficiency and it's difficult to demonstrate, is trying to draw some connections between these different impacts. So what I like to encourage students to do is literally draw a line connecting these impacts and explain the connection that you see. So for example, maybe you can see that there's a connection between the impact of cultural messages and the impact of his perceptions of norms. So explain how those interact with one another to make life really challenging for Nolan on that night. Similarly, you might see an impact between peers and culture. Maybe you see some similarities or you see how they kind of build upon one another. So you could draw a line between those and explain the connection. And again, just for examples, you might see an impact between his values and perceptions of norms. And you could draw a line and explain the connection. The last part of the skill is asking you to think about what are the action steps that could be taken. Now, in this case, there's nothing we can do to, there's nothing Nolan could do to try to improve this situation, of course. But what you could consider is what are the steps that somebody could have taken that night that might have resulted in a healthier ending for Nolan. But you can add that action plan down at the bottom of your sheet of paper. And that's it. So that's how you can create a mind map illustration of what you did in the graphic organizer to make it kind of more visual to show off how things are connecting.